All right. Welcome everybody on Friday morning, or some of you are from elsewhere. One of our favorite people was messaging me earlier from the East Coast. So we have a very wide and diverse audience today. And welcome to this series of Pitch Global, CVC Thought Leadership Series in association with Andrew Mewa of TDK Ventures. This is the sixth in our series. So before I we get into this program, want to give you brief background of us, Pitch Global and predecessor companies. We are mentoring entrepreneurs and running investor events for almost a decade. And few years ago, we became a satellite of US government program Tech Futures Group, funded by NorCal SBDC. And then and over the years, we have mentored entrepreneurs. In the last financial year, entrepreneurs, part of our program, has raised almost $50 million, and some of them have been part of this program as well. So why Pitch Global is unique is because over the years, we have not only run our own events, we have gone behind events of very prominent groups. So we were partners of Keiretsu Forum, GTS conference. We co-host events with Pitch Force, US Angels. On surface, people may think they are competition, but co-option and collaborative approach is the way to go. We are a firm believer in founders collaborating with each other. That's why usually we don't pick winners unless it's co-hosted by some other event and they are calling the shots. So because we feel that the old adage, most startups fail, is redundant, with a caveat. If the founder or co-founders have solid life experience, good background, they have skin in the game, they are doing this full time, all these factors are there, then the success rate can go up exponentially. And even if an idea is too early for the times, they could still have a reasonable exit because big corporations want to buy IP and good teams, and they can still get a healthy return. So on that note, we are a huge fan of entrepreneurs. We have some amazing entrepreneurs here watching in. We just got some message from one of our favorites, Maxwell Biosciences. We are working with someone who used to be the deal flow chair of Keiretsu Forum, and she invested in this company, and she liked this company so much, she is mentoring them. So we have people like this here. So on that note, we want to acknowledge our sponsors, SKPR, who is hosting this event. Also, thank you. We also have Tech Futures Group, SBDC, who are funding this event to us. They are not present, but they are conspicuous by their absence. So thank you as well. And Pitch Global is presented by Trinet. So often we have Megan Rice from Trinet also in our event. On that note, I hand over the floor to Sharon Sim, founder of SKPR, who also has been huge supporter, and she has brought founders of tech, not founders, that's very euphemistically speaking of me. She has brought editors of TechCrunch, USA. What was that, Sharon? The other one?
Jefferson Graham, USA Today.
Yeah, all these. I just need some more water. And she also interviewed me just before Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank at LA Tribune. Also, that was pretty amazing. So on that note, Sharon, floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. My name is Sharon Sim. I'm the founder of SKC. I've been doing PR for too long, but loving it, especially working with startups. Our focus is on technology PR, and we have a soft spot for founders and startups and in realizing your visions. I also have on my team, Aaron Brown, joining us today. So as you can see, we have a really good schedule today. So consider SKCPR your little opening act before the rock stars come on. After we speak briefly, we'll share with you a couple of PR insights that will be helpful for you to grow your business. And then we'll segue to the entrepreneurial perspective by Joseph Kemdali, who from co-founder of Touring Sense. Then at around 9:30, Andrew Maywald from TDK Ventures will present, and Casey will curate a Q&A. And then at 10 o'clock, Jerry Baranano will also interview guest CVCs from Goodyear Ventures. Then after that, closing remarks. And then throughout the session, please feel free to chat your questions to us. I believe Erin is on mute, right? Do you want to give a little bit of logistics guidance?
Yeah. So for our attendees, we're going to keep you all muted and your video turned off. That's just to ensure that everything goes smoothly, no one accidentally unmutes and is disrupting with background noise. So we appreciate your understanding there. And if you do have a question for our guests, you can just type the question in the chat and we'll be monitoring that. And we'll read your questions aloud if they're selected.
Wonderful. And also know that this video is being recorded and it will be kind of posted on the YouTube channel, hopefully Pitch Global's YouTube channel, hopefully by next week, right? Okay. Yeah,
that's right.
Great. So yeah, so the next few minutes, Erin and I will share with you a hot topic. It's called, sorry, my screen is blocking it. Yeah, 4 reasons why startup CEOs should embrace thought leadership. So this is all of you joining today. A lot of you are founders of your startups, your CEOs running your company, and you're wondering what is thought leadership. Maybe we could think about the thought leaders we know, the big names: Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Sheryl Sandberg. They're all executives at high power companies, and they all have expertise in their subject matters. They really pioneered new grounds, new industries. And more than that, they have relentlessly taken public positions. They share their unique perspectives. They voice their opinions loudly and not afraid and publicly, in many different situations on TV, with the media and all that. And in other words, they're all thought leaders. So why should you as a CEO embrace thought leadership? It's because you want to be well known by those who matter. Of course, none of us are Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, but within your own sphere, within your own circle of influence, you want to be as influential as possible. Your mission is to get your innovations, your services, and your products out there to be known by the market. And how much easier would it be if you have business opportunities that come your way just because they know your name, just because they know what you represent? And how do you do that? Is a lot of times is really talking relentlessly and consistently at events such as this, at writing contributor articles and guest blog posts at the sites that matter, that that your potential audiences are reading, as well as taking opportunities with the media, and also getting speaking opportunities and even winning awards. And a lot of these, having a very focused PR program can help you there.
The second reason startup CEOs should embrace thought leadership is because thought leaders build credibility with investors and customers. So as you probably know, trust is the most important currency for a startup. It forms the basis for every successful business relationship. Just think about it this way: investors need to trust the people behind the business, and they need to trust the company so that they'll believe that that person and that company is worth injecting their time and money into. Customers also need to trust the product that you're selling before they'll buy it. And thought leadership is the path to achieving trust for both. So demonstrating your expertise through the channels like Sharon just mentioned, contributed articles, writing white papers, speaking opportunities, that will all build your reputation as a leader with ideas worth pursuing. And in turn, that will make you someone worth trusting.
Right. And most important, as business people, you founded a company, you have a product to sell, you have a service to sell. And if you're known out there, people will come calling versus you pounding the pavement. So the more you can do that, the more your salespeople will love you. And because it shortened their sales cycle, it helped them close on the leads that come through the door.
Mhm. And finally, thought leaders create legacies. So one of the most important things you can do for your business is to take that vision that you have for the future and make sure that it continues on. And you do that by creating a legacy. And thought leaders, because they are well known, they're well respected, they're able to create those legacies that last. So for example, Bill Gates famously said that his vision was to have a computer in every home. And because of that vision, and to bring it to life, he became a thought leader. And through that thought leadership, he created a legacy, and that legacy still ensures that his vision is enduring today. And it also informs the way that we see computers. And by the way, everyone does have a computer in their home now. So as you can see, thought leadership helped him to get to where he is and to help his company create that legacy. So in conclusion, thought leadership is not just a PR buzzword. It's also a way that you can help to build and sustain your business and achieve actionable results. So the sooner you start working on thought leadership, the sooner you'll start reaping its rewards. And that's our short little presentation. And before we go, we also wanted to mention that we have a special offer for friends of Pitch Global. So by attending today's event, you're entitled to a complimentary half-hour PR consultation. If you're wondering how PR can help your business, we're happy to speak with you on that. We also offer a VIP discount for Business Wire. So if you have press releases that you want to distribute, we have a special partnership with Business Wire that gives us discounted rates, and we will pass those discounted rates on to you with no markup as a thank you for attending today's event. So if you're interested in that, you can contact us and just mention Pitch Global. Our website is skc-pr.com, or you can contact Sharon, Sharon at skc-pr.com. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Casey to kick off today's event.
That's great. Thank you, Erin. Sharon, please stay because we need you to share a couple other things. You know, one thing is PR is there is general PR, and we also have PR which is specific to tech. Now, we really want Sharon to give an idea about the Baidu case study, because everyone knows Baidu, and Sharon herself, she really understands tech PR very well. She sold her previous company to major tech PR company, top 10 in US. She's also PR advisor to government of Taiwan. So Sharon, can you quickly, 2 minutes, say what you accomplished with the company you mentored, which was acquired by Baidu?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So this was several years ago, but definitely a feather in our caps. We had worked with a startup, brand new, maybe only a few months old. They had initial funding of 1.5 million from 2 investors. And their job, they told us, hey, please help put us on the map. We need to at least have 1 million users using the app. It's a mobile security app. And we really want to just get out there and be known. At that time, they have a security app that focuses on keeping out malware or alerting users of malware and viruses on Android platforms for your phones. And also at that time, Android platforms have been very risky. Anyone with an app can put it on. They're very different from the Apple iOS. So a lot of people were struggling with viruses and all that. So they came out with a really cool solution. And we came out with a really compelling PR story for them, including because they have so much data of all the people using the phones and how they're downloading apps. They were able to figure out what was the most dangerous marketplace to download apps and what was the safest and what were the top 10 most safest and dangerous apps and all that stuff. Because of all the data, we're able to package really interesting content that got the media interested. And we did studies. We came out with like the mobile mayhem report, the spooky mobile mayhem report around Halloween. Then we did it quarterly, and they got a lot of media interest. We also featured really interesting things about their product, they had a feature where if somebody steals the phone, and you type in the wrong password 3 times, the phone will take a picture of you and send it to the original, email it to the original owner. So that also got a lot of media traction with some TV shows and stuff. So before we know it, they're written up everywhere. And the industry analysts were also paying attention to them. Then suddenly they got contacted by Amazon, by Baidu, and all that. And so it opened up a lot of channels for them to talk with partners, to talk with potential investors. So within less than 1.5 years, they got 2 solid acquisition offers, and they eventually got bought by Baidu for $36 million. So multiple returns for the investors and for the founders. So it was a very happy success stories.
Great, Sharon. We want to stir imagination and possibility in people's mind. So that's very powerful. So now we get to the next part of today's program. But briefly, I want to explain what we want to achieve here. We want to, there are a lot of entrepreneurial events, there are a lot of good CVC events, but there are very few events where we can take distinguished entrepreneurs and really help them and shine the light on them so that CVCs can see something which was missing before, and then hopefully this becomes a genesis of future possibilities. So we are really excited that we have such distinguished team. We are taking someone we know very well, Turing Sense, and then uh, by the way, one of our favorite people, Mira Sirotic, former deal flow chair of Keiretsu Forum, said she loves the thought leadership, how it came out. So thank you, Mira.
Thank you,
And
Mira. Yeah.
we have, by the way, I don't think Megan is here, but I'll make a call for her. Megan, are you here from TriNet? No, when Megan is not here, we just give 30-second pitch for TriNet because Pitch Global is brought to you by TriNet, and TriNet is a leader in the PEO space, and they can level the playing field between a startup and large Fortune 500 corporations, and by bringing in their ecosystem, and they are tremendously connected with investors and Silicon Valley ecosystem. So do take a look at TriNet because it could help you hit the hockey stick and have senior people join your team without having to pay a lot in health insurance and all. So now going back to our main event, we want to be both-sided marketplace. This is a unique thought leadership because it combines both the entrepreneurial perspective as well as the CVC's perspective. And I'm very confident this would become huge in the days to come. So today we have one entrepreneur, uh, Joseph Chamdani of Turing Sense, and later we will have a presentation from Andrew Mawa of TDK Ventures. Andrew, once again, is someone who attended MIT and Wharton and was investor in and VC in China for a long time before he came here and helped co-start TDK Ventures, which is doing very well. And he has tremendous perspective. So we are very lucky to get someone like him to lead the charge on CVC thought leadership. And then at the end, we are going to have an interview. Our entrepreneur in residence, Jerry Baranano, who himself is very accomplished person. He, among other things, he started US government program Tech Futures Group and grew it. And during pandemic, he retired and moved to the East Coast. And this is the action. So he's become our mentor again and helping us develop and deepen relationships with CVCs. And he's going to interview Dr. Bin Zhao of Goodyear Ventures. And I am amazed to see that not only TDK, but also Goodyear invests early stage. So we want to dispel the notion that CVCs are for late stage only, because CVC is going so much, the investment is doubling. So normal categories are ceasing to exist. and change is taking over, and we want to be at the cutting edge of change. So on that note, today's event has a focus on technology, and I want everyone to meet uh, Dr. Joseph Chamdani, founder of Turing Sense. Joseph, thank you for being here. Really excited. And before you introduce yourself, I want to make a comment. When I first met him, I was like really amazed by the amount of fundraising prowess he has. And in his previous company, he raised $80 million. And in his present company, he has raised almost $20 million. So it's a rare combination of someone who's a technology guru and a fundraising expert. So, Joseph, please introduce yourself and share your background.
Thank you, Casey, and Sharon. Thanks for having me. Um, so, I started my journey in Silicon Valley right after, my study, as a researcher and PhD graduate from Georgia Tech. I was recruited by Sun Microsystem, but what I was always passionate about is learning about computer system, basically every aspect of computer, from the transistor, the motherboard, how it's built, all the way to the software, compiler, operating system, and the application that runs on the computer. So that led me to that, sort of journey, of my professional career, and landed at Sun Microsystem back in 1995. That was the sort of the heyday of Sun, and a lot of innovation happened in Silicon Valley at that time, including Java was first launched, during that time, and I had the opportunity to work as a microprocessor architect with Sun co-founder Bill Joy to spearhead the project in multi-core, multi-threaded computing that later on we patented, and but later on we also had a licensing, cross-licensing with Intel, and Intel materialized it to all the microprocessor that we see today is multi-core and multi-threaded. So after Sun, with a co-founder, co-worker at Sun, we form a startup, Sunera, which is in storage serial networking. So from microprocessor, I went into something new in networking, and that was when we raised a lot of money at the beginning, but then internet bubble crashed in 2001, just a few months after we raised money, fortunately. And then the 9/11 economic crisis happened, but given we have enough funding, we could last through the sort of the desert and survive, and had a successful exit. The company got purchased in 2003 by public company, market leader in storage area networking. Then I went to another startup doing data warehousing before it became a popular name, big data. So that was in 2006, and the company also exit through acquisition in 2010. Turing Sense is my third one. So this is where, kind of like, I'm a technologist, but I'm also a sports guy. I love any kind of, sports, and, I'm particularly a tennis hacker, you can call it. I used to compete in NCAA, but just have fun after that, and raised 2 kids playing tennis also. And what I saw is that learning motion skill is quite difficult and complex. Whether you're learning a tennis stroke or of a golf swing or even yoga, or doing fitness the right way. It's an art, and that's where I got the idea of Turing Sense. Why not making it more precise? Sure, you can have a private coach if you have a really good private coach that also understand biomechanics. The right motion for yourself as an individual. But can we digitize this? And that's when I start looking into this Hollywood technology, the avatar animation, how they generate a 3D movement, of yourself using these optical cameras. When you wear this mocap suit, motion capture suit, they call it, with dots all over the place, the infrared marker, and be able to capture your body movement in full 3D in avatar. So it's good for certainly all the movies these days have some kind of side of special effects with avatar, whether it's Iron Man or even movie Gladiator, mixed reality, Alita, Avatar. Avatar is my favorite movie. They have this technology behind it, but it's available at multi-million-dollar. And I came from that background of computing, bringing back, how it ties to this. I saw the evolution from mainframe to PC. And so my thought was, with this Turing Sense journey, can we make this $1 million motion capture that is accurate into something that is less than $100? That was the target, kind of like mainframe to PC level, where everybody can afford and enjoy this technology. And that's the birth of what we call it pivot motion AI technology.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you also answered a couple other questions we would have asked before. So your technology can read our mind. So I'm very excited about it. But before we delve into a little bit more into the technology, can you explain how you met your co-founder, how you know him? Have you worked together as a team before?
Right. Okay. So my two previous startup, I have the same co-worker from Sun. So we have work experience already together. This third company, Turing Sense, I partnered with someone that I haven't worked with before, but we have the same passion and kind of like at the same juncture in our entrepreneur and technologies kind of a journey. So we both have successful startup in Silicon Valley in sort of a enterprise product. Lyman He is his name, or Limin He to be exact. He's a UC Berkeley PhD. He had a successful software company in electronic design automation, and but he's passionate about exercise and wellness. We're both doing exercise, frequently, and met in this sports club, courtside in Los Gatos. He was doing swimming I think almost every day, and so we got introduced, and we kind of say, why don't we start something that combine our passion in technology as well as sports wellness in general. And but he has one interesting journey in his startup. In my two previous startup, I went through the traditional route with the VC, went to the Sand Hill Row and raise a bunch of money that way. His startup, he only raised a smaller amount with friend and family, basically angel investor, mostly, and it was successful. and he was very efficient. But certainly for software only, that is easier. But if your startup have a hardware component that or a system, what we call it system product, usually need to raise more money. So so we kind of talk about this and combine the idea. Why don't we raise money, mostly angel investor or smaller VC, until we have a, not just MVP, but product that goes to a customer and know the the benefit is delivered to the customer. Then we can start raising the bigger money with the VC or corporate venture, and we are in that kind of like milestone. Next year is when we plan to raise our big Series A.
Great. That also gives us a very good perspective, because we want founders, especially solo founders, to find other co-founders, and how people meet is very seldom we hear it anywhere. So going back to your technology, can you get into a little more details about your technology as well as the application, and also what your backgrounds as a technologist qualify you to, in this area, in the sensor area, coming from such solid hardware background? I mean, of course, you're both PhDs and you're probably good in everything, but still, how do the dots connect?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what I found the most valuable lesson from my journey as a PhD student, and later on got the dissertation and degree. It's not about having the belt of this computer engineering degree, but more of what it taught me how to research something that, to start with, I wasn't that knowledgeable, but learned to research about it. But also, as part of the PhD requirement, you have to, if you were to propose something new, it has to be new and innovative. That is, it hasn't been done. So that sort of trained me at the beginning how to differentiate with an innovation that leads to differentiation also. So this pivot motion AI, when we started, as I mentioned, we started looking at Hollywood animation, and then we found there is another way to do it using, instead of this expensive optical camera, hundreds of them in a big room, you can do it with this sensor, accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, and then just put it on every bone of your body. Then it will, start animate accordingly. So that technology was already there, but is available at a very expensive cost. Kind of, they use it for low budget animation movie production, but it's still at 12,000 to 20,000. The cost, and very hard to set up. It looks like battle gear. Is certainly not for consumers. So we wanted to take again, kind of like from the mainframe into the PC, so that everyday people at home, even non-techie person can use it. So that is basically the reason we came up with this smart clothing that you see on my background. That smart clothing generated this basically avatar life, like 3D mirror of yourself whenever you do movement wearing this pivot smart clothing. And we use just the dirt cheap sensor that available in every phone or wearable these days, and we don't want to create a special sensor, and so just build out of commodity hardware, but innovate on the algorithms and the sensor fusion. So we did this for home environment where there is all kind of magnetic influence, disturbance. So we have to get rid of the magnetometer. Other motion capture suit with sensor have to use magnetometer for heading or direction. We have to get rid of it just using accelerometer and gyroscope. And we have a unique solution, an algorithm that works on any environment, which is important for everyday people, right? And the price is we're able to design it, the hardware, such that we can sell it for $99. That's the selling price. But the application of it is so broad. You can think of it all kind of motion learning skill as well as gaming. You can think of it if you were to connect this with kind of like popular game like that Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Wii Tennis, for example. You use a joystick or a nunchuck and then try to play tennis, but that's not accurate. But with this, and literally we part of the proof of concept to build this motion AI platform, we prototype a number of exercises and application, not just sports, but also to physical therapy. We prototype tennis, golf, even martial arts, and then finally, we wanted to prove, so that, very important to mention that our goal to scale this is not by ourselves, direct to consumer, but through partnership, B2B, so that we can scale in many direction and application, through an ecosystem of partners, not just trying to do it ourselves. But we pick yoga as a beachhead because we need to prove that this motion AI platform and technology can go all the way to the customer and deliver the benefit. And we prove that with the Pivot Yoga. With getting a rave review from yoga teacher and students that have tried this technology. But it's amazing to see how fast a user can learn, say, yoga alignment or a tennis swing, with this technology. I mean, we constantly do testing with early adopters as well as users, test user. I'm a tennis player, as I mentioned. We brought in a few tennis users and some of them beginner, and we put on this pivot sensor and follow this swing, follow this forehand swing from a tennis pro. At the beginning it looks like their stroke, kind of like beginner, but half an hour later.
Joseph, I'm sorry, we are running out of time, but we still need one more question from you.
Oh,
So
okay. Sorry.
we don't want to get into that granular level of details.
Passionate
but you already touched on the question, which is partnering. Can you give your partnering landscape and give one example? You don't have to name the company, but I know you're meeting with very famous celebrity Hollywood actress, and you are going to, how the meeting is happening, how you can OEM, Hearing Sense product can OEM within partners like Facebook and others. If you can sum it up, and that will, I think, give people a total 360-degree view of the knowledge.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let me mention two partners without saying the names, because we're still in deep talks right now. But one of them is an athleisure apparel company. Athleisure is the apparel terminology for those kind of yoga pants, yoga shirt that is commonly used for fitness, and this day even going to office. But this company it's about affordable innovation, and they have a unique subscription model. Currently, they have 2 million subscribers, where they give a collection of this athleisure, pants or shirt as part of the membership, and that's how they get a customer loyalty. And offering many styles, and not to get bored with just one. The founder, co-founder, is a Hollywood actress that we have a connection with, and we show the pivot yoga short video clip, and later on we shipped samples to her when she was still overseas shooting movie, and but she got so intrigued by it, and she herself a yogi herself, so saw what it can do. And then so we're in the process. She wanted us to go to LA to meet with her team, and product team and marketing team. So we're in that process.
Okay. I thought of one more question. So this has been a good example. So we can only ask so many questions. What is the size of this market, and who's your competition? Quickly.
Well, overall, as far as the motion AI is over $1 trillion. We calculated because it's an intersection between apparel, sports, wellness, and gaming. So that's, to be exact, 1.4 trillion market. But just, the beachhead market, yoga alone, there are 50 million yogis or yoga participants in the US, and 300 million in the world. If we were to, get just 1 million of it, that's already hundreds of $millions of revenue potential. So
wow. All right. So who else? If it's a 1.4 trillion market, who else? Yeah. Who would you think could be your competition?
Well, it's not. We don't think it's a competition, but metaverse is definitely. We fit one piece of the puzzle, which is if you look at Oculus Quest, you have the head movement track, and you have the 2-hand controller, but they could not track the rest of the body. Now, if this is coupled together with that technology, the metaverse, whether you're doing gaming, like say dancing competition game, or you're doing exercise, this is a whole lot more immersive, and wow. Especially with the AR glasses, you can play golf outdoor also.
Wow.
No limitation. Yeah.
That's very impressive. That's like putting yourself at the highest level, of competitive landscape. So on that note, Joseph, please stay, because we want our follow-on speakers also to make comments if they want to, because that's our whole purpose, to create emerging thought leadership and synthesis between what an entrepreneurs aspire to and what CVCs and others want to bring to the table. So thank you. Now I hand over the floor to our presenter, and this is a person I already introduced, but I'm gonna reintroduce him again for people who joined late. Andrew Mewa of TDK Ventures. He's, once again, super smart person, attended MIT and Wharton, and was a VC in China for a long time before he relocated and helped start TDK Ventures. Today, you can guess that our theme, we have a touch of tech partnerships. So that's why we are talking inordinately longer about technology. And the kind of brain power we have here, they're all tech gurus from different sides. So with much respect, I hand over the floor to Andrew.
Thanks, Casey. Thank you everyone for joining. Today, I'll be presenting on founders building tech partnerships with corporates. And in this presentation, I'll share some insights into building tech partnerships, but also share some general examples of tech partnerships, as well as specific examples of tech partnerships. First, in terms of the agenda, we'll start out with intro to TDK Ventures. After that, we'll dive into building tech partnerships and the central part of the presentation. And lastly, we'll conclude with Q&A. So about TDK Ventures, it's a technology-focused venture capital fund based in San Jose and Boston. And we invest globally in seed and early stage startups that leverage fundamental material science to unlock an attractive and sustainable future. We have two funds. Fund 1 launched in July 2019, $50 million, and Fund 2 launched in early 2021 with a size $150 million, so a total of $200 million. In terms of our core values, we have 4 different core values. These are very important to us. Contributing to society. This is all about making meaningful contributions to society. One team reaching for the sky. This is about leveraging diversity and expertise of the core team to extend team capabilities. Delivering deep insights. We're all about delivering deep insights into all the different strategic spaces where we explore. And entrepreneurs first. Entrepreneurs are our customers. They're the heroes of our story. They're the core of everything that we do. In terms of our investment criteria, we focus on venture financial returns, strategic value with synergies, as well as attractive and sustainable future. So, and at the center, we're looking for the global king of the hill. Here's a list of our key team members. I'm not going to mention everyone, but we have a big team that's very focused on delivering value. And here are investment categories and investment focuses. And you can see for myself, mainly focused on industrial and mobility. Here are some of our portfolio companies. We've already achieved 2 M&A exits as well as 1 IPO, so we're very thankful for that. And some more of our portfolio companies, very excited about all the potential these companies bring. And I think we're learning that there's so much more, and we're very eager to add value to these companies as they grow. Now I'd like to dive into the main content on building tech partnerships. Really, we see that partnership, for corporates and startups, they don't have to compete. A lot of people think that it's all about competing and somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. Actually, I see that partnerships can create more value for the company, more value for the consumer and the whole industry. And for corporates and startups, I shared this slide before, but I want to emphasize it. They bring different value to the table. And so specifically with respect to tech partnerships, for corporates, typically we're looking at corporates contributing sales, distribution channels, as well as tapping into their large user or customer base. For the startups, typically what we're seeing is the startups are contributing innovative IP. And in many cases, also a unique product vision. And these are a lot of the ways that startups choose to enter and bring value to technology partnerships. I've presented this before. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but want to say that for technology partnerships, typically we see that the joint product development or a similar type of arrangement is typically what corporates and startups develop. So it could be, for example, a joint venture or even some kind of strategic alignment, but some kind of joint product development where both the startup as well as the corporate are contributing value to that arrangement That's typically what we see for these tech partnerships. And there are a lot of benefits for both the corporates and the startups. Both benefit from the partner-driven growth. By working together, both parties can accelerate growth of a particular business. They enable access to new verticals. In many cases, that by combining efforts, both the corporate and the startup can enter new and different markets that previously they may have been unable to do so. They can both obtain special skills and capabilities. By working together, combining efforts, it's not necessarily 1 + 1 = 2, but it could be 1 + 1 = 3, or multiplication in many cases. Accessing knowledge or resources. By partnering together, both parties are able to see new and different avenues for getting access to knowledge or resources. Enabling new customer experiences. This is a big one. We see that the key to customer demand, or what the customer requires, may be combining both efforts from the startup and the corporate to provide that value to the customer and thus create a new customer experience. Lastly, facilitating an ecosystem provide end user benefits. In many cases, the startup and the corporate can work together to combine their efforts and create an ecosystem that will provide long-lasting value to end users and all the other participants in the ecosystem. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but to say that to start a partnership really starts with research. I can't emphasize that enough. You really need to understand your market, understand the value you bring, but also understand your partner. Identify key stakeholders and turn them into champions. It's really about relationship building. It's about viewing them as real partners and building a relationship based on partnership. Being flexible to adapt to feedback, that's super important, because as different things happen in the business, you want to be able to leverage your relationship in the partnership to adjust to things that may happen over time. And lastly, you want to set common goals and be clear on expectations. This is all about creating a place where both the startup and the corporate know what's going on and are working towards the same goals. And so here are some of the key points for startups. Here's what startups need to think about. Firstly, I want to say, I can't emphasize this enough, it's about a clear and compelling technology value proposition. What a lot of corporates want to see is the startup is bringing something that they perceive as very valuable and that they can understand. And in some cases, startups may need to spend more time on that, developing that clear and compelling technology value proposition so that immediately the corporate sees the value there. Next, nail down the precise problem you're solving. Corporates have many different problems that they're looking at, and certainly some are more important than others. But you don't want to try to solve all the problems at once. That generally is difficult and may not be really where you want to spend your time. It could be the case, and probably is the case, that you want to spend your time focusing on the main problem or one of the bigger problems. And once you nail that down, it also enhances the value proposition that you're bringing for solving that problem. Be clear on the partnership dynamics. This always gets tricky as things goes on, because what you see is both the startup and the corporate potentially may have different points of view on what the ideal dynamics should be, but through dialogue, through communication, and I have to communicate often, you iron out some of those differences and align on something that both the corporate and the startup can agree on. Another point, know when it's time to pull the plug. Well, really you want clear metrics and you're monitoring, how is the partnership growing? Are we really developing what we set out to develop? And know maybe when it's time to maybe potentially part ways. And lastly, it's working on building a strong commitment from corporate senior management for the long term. Really, you want to view these tech partnerships as creating long-term value, not a short-term sort of small project, but something that can create long-term value. So here, I want to provide some general examples. These are just general examples of tech partnerships for value creation from across many different verticals. So robotics and med tech. In this example, and these were provided by McKinsey, we can see that the medical robotics startup, they developed this technology, but in collaboration with a corporate, and the corporate helped navigate the regulatory approval processes and gave access to its customer base and use of its distribution channels. And these are assets that would have taken the startup years and large sums of money to build. And so we can see that the partnership, the value that the corporate is contributing, as well as the value that the startup is contributing. And ultimately, they developed a new technology platform that was significantly more versatile and inexpensive than the corporate's existing solutions. And this enabled both partners to address a larger audience of potential customers. And really, at the end of the day, the success factors around attention from business management, reciprocity, clear targets for co-developing and co-marketing the joint product. And this was a joint development, a joint product development that ended in acquisition of the startup. Another general example, DevOps and automotive. DevOps startup working in the autonomous driving space, working with an automotive OEM, where they were able to leverage both of their expertise to create basically a new product together. And this was another example of joint product development that benefited both the startup as well as the corporate. On the right, we have the fintech and banking example. And in this case, the fintech startup was aiming to grow its customer base and developed a partnership with a bank to utilize the bank's large existing customer base and reputation. And with this partnership, the fintech increased its value and sent out a positive signal to investors and customers. The bank also extended its service offering and thus increased its appeal, leading to new customers and higher engagement. And this archetype, this partnership archetype, was a reseller agreement with a high level of technical integration. And now on to some specific examples. Many of you may know that Pfizer and BioNTech entered into a partnership agreement in early 2020 to co-develop COVID-19 vaccine. And this, as many people would say, has actually been a very successful collaboration where they were able to develop this vaccine that has been already administered to a large number of people. And this is an example of both the startup and the corporate joining forces to develop actually a fairly complicated product, in this case a pharmaceutical, in a relatively short time frame. Another example, Toyota partnered with Aurora to develop autonomous taxis. As many of you know, autonomous mobility is a very hot space, and there are a number of players in this space. But we can see here that Aurora, in this example, the startup, leveraged their capabilities, their technology, to collaborate with a larger corporate, Toyota, to create value together. And this is a great example of a technology collaboration that would create value for the entire ecosystem, for the customers, for partners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Another example of quite an attractive technology collaboration would be between Harbor and ADT. Harbor is a startup that has developed an app that gamifies emergency preparedness. And by partnering with ADT, which is a very large and successful home security company, they're able to offer a specialized product that really created new types of value for customers of ADT. And we can see that by working together, they're able to create something very unique and very powerful for their customers. And I think that's the end of the presentation. Now I'd like to open it up to Q&A.
Great. Andrew, that was really interesting and very contemporary. Love it how you weaved in Pfizer and all. By the way, few months ago, we had Hee-Suk Jung from SK Group here as our guest CVC. And then recently I saw that they made a $4.5 billion partnership with Bloom Energy, and Bloom stock went up the roof. So hopefully our thought leadership made a difference to that, at least we can start, so I was really excited saying, hey, we are making some impact, so really excited about it. So today, before I look at some other questions, can you categorize the technology landscape? How would IoT companies' approach to a technology partnership could be different from a sensor company, could be different from a DevOps company? Is there any perspectives? Maybe there are 7 verticals, it's a horizontal, not a vertical, but 7 horizontal within technology, and how they would, their approach could be different or similar?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I highlighted in the presentation is this understanding of your value proposition, but also understanding of the problems that the corporate may be facing. So for example, one case may be, let's say the corporate is very much focused on software. Much of their business is around software for managing and collecting data, let's say. But in this case, let's say the startup is focused on IoT. They're developing a specialized IoT sensor that collects data. Well, perhaps one partnership might be developing a technology partnership between the startup's IoT sensors and the corporate's software. That way, well, the software company, the corporate in this case, may not have access to the type of sensor that the startup is able to provide. But by working together, they combine both the software and the hardware to create perhaps a new type of platform that may be more attractive to customers in the marketplace. And so that's one example. Perhaps another example might be the startup is working on a special type of compute platform. Perhaps it includes a special type of processor plus memory and storage and other sort of capabilities. Whereas the corporate may be contributing actually access to the customers. So the corporate may have through its business access to many customers that would want such a product. And so they can work together to combine their efforts to create value for both the startup and the corporate.
Okay, this is really helpful. By the way, in our last event, we learned from Deborah of IBM that in quantum computing, they have a lot of good partnerships going on. So even within a corporation, they could have priorities. So a startup should try to identify, if someone goes with a DevOps idea to IBM, they may not make much progress. But if a quantum computing company goes, they could go on the top of the list. So is there any more granular advice you give to a startup? What kind of research a founder should do to identify the strategic initiatives, tech initiatives of a CVC?
That's a great question. And here's what I would suggest. For startups, and as I said before in my presentation, do your research. But that starts with, typically you start with some kind of online research, and that'd be looking at the corporate's website, reading their press releases, understanding all the public material that's out there that the corporate has shared about their business and their strategic initiatives. Even look at their financial reports. Most corporates are publicly listed, and so they would share their financial reports and some of their strategic plans. And I would suggest reading that, because that would also share insights into directions they're going. Also, another layer is, in some cases, senior management from those corporates may present on their business, or whether it be some kind of presenting on their financials or their annual report or something like that, or maybe just generally at a conference. These can also be sources of information that you can learn about what they're focusing on, what their priorities are. After that, the next layer I would suggest is starting to build a relationship with the corporate. And this is the key. Find a way to connect with somebody senior in the corporate, either through a warm intro, or maybe you're both members of a certain association. Leverage those to get a warm intro to the corporate and start a dialogue. And I think this is where you would get to know a little bit more insights into what excites that corporate. What are the real priorities? What are the ways that you can create something of value that the corporate would be interested in? And I think that's where putting all of that information together is where startups can really separate themselves from the pack and have a really differentiated offering for potential tech partnership.
Great. There are a couple more questions. These are shorter questions. One question is from Mira Serotic. She says, I'm curious if material science includes nanotech material that are engineered to make a very big contribution to society.
Absolutely. I think nanomaterials is a very exciting area in material science. I know many startups working in that space, developing innovations in that space. And I also know corporates that are very interested in that space. And so even with nanomaterials, I see opportunities for startups and corporates to partner together on the technology side.
That's great. We'll take one more from Daryl, who's one of our friends in the East Coast. He has two, but we'll take one because yet another community member, Serge Zno, has already answered one of his questions. First question was, what is the best way to reach out to TDK? Serge answered, warm intros are the best. So Serge, thank you for the answer. We will take Daryl's next question. In the past, IBM and many tech companies wanted to buy IP and license IP. Is this still common or not so much?
Well, it depends. And I think it depends on the corporate and it depends on the IP. And really, I think it comes down to, again, what is the corporate's sort of vision for some of those new disruptive spaces. For example, we spoke earlier in the context of IBM and, for example, quantum computing. In those cases, it could be the case that they may be interested in acquiring IP. I think it all depends on what type of IP. Does it specifically address an area that is strategically interesting for IBM? And I think that would come out in a discussion. I think that's something that you definitely need to do through first a warm intro, then develop a relationship, then start a dialogue around that. But yes, there are some corporates that are willing to acquire IP as long as it fits within their strategic model and they can see where it can create value.
That's great. Andrew, one last, do you any comment on the interview of Turing Sense?
I think it was an exciting interview. I think one of the things that I saw was that in this case, the founder developed an amazing product that provided value to the customer, but then through a relationship with that company in the athleisure space, we're able to create a dialogue and look at different ways where they could work together to create value for the customer. And so I think that's really the way it needs to be, and starting that dialogue and discussing things and sharing ideas, creating a shared vision and goals, and then working together to align and achieve those goals. And I think that's really the way to do it.
That's great. I'll send their details to you. I'm sure you've seen them in our events before. So great, Andrew. Once again, thank you and for being here. And let's looking forward to the last part of this event, which is the guest CVC, interview. So now we have, I think your part is over. So thank you. And now we have a dialogue and an interview between Jerry Baranano, who is a serial entrepreneur with exits, a huge supporter of Silicon Valley ecosystem. He started and ran Tech Futures Group with funding from State of California, SBDC. He's the one who made us a satellite a few years ago. And now he retired and moved to the East Coast. And he is mentoring us by being entrepreneur in residence for CVC relationships. In our company, we have 3 entrepreneur in residence. Our third EIR, Axel Tillman, I think I briefly saw him also here. He's former US CEO of Fund of Funds. So Axel and I, we focus more on the startup side, and Jerry on the CVC side. So Jerry today is going to interview Dr. Bin Zhao. We had to have a PhD CVC because today the theme is technology. And Dr. Zhao is part of Goodyear Ventures. And I learned on Goodyear's website that they invest early stage as well. I'm really seeing more and more CVCs investing early stage. And some of the CVCs, they are even spinning out their CVC arms and getting LPs from other investors as well. Sometimes they keep the name like Illumina Ventures. Sometimes they may even change the name, like Banco Santander becoming Mora Ventures. All these people have attended Pitch Global before. So on that note, let me introduce Jerry Baranano and Dr. Bin Zhao, and they'll start with brief intros of themselves, and then interview will begin.
Thank you, Casey. This is Jerry Baragnano. I'm an EIR at Pitch Global. I started also Tech Futures Group back in 2012 and ran it from 2014, the end of last year. We worked with about 250 companies very intently, and we touched about 700 some odd companies and helped the companies who were part of TFG to raise about $350 million. Very, very happy to chat with Bin Zhao. And I just want to let him introduce himself and then talk a little bit about the Goodyear Venture Fund and, how big it is, how many deals they do, what's the size, do they lead, that kind of thing. Thank you for being here, Bin.
Sure. Thank you so much, Gary, for having me. Probably I just say a couple of words about myself first. And so I would like to say I was a technical person. I got my electrical engineering PhD from US. Then at the early stage of my career, I worked for a couple of semiconductor companies. And then before I joined Goodyear Ventures, I worked for another CVC called TCL Ventures. If you folks are not very familiar with TCL, basically, they are think about that as like Samsung and LG. They are a consumer electronics company. Say if you want to buy a TV, if you stop by Best Buy, Walmart, or Costco, you're gonna find the TV. I think from Samsung, Sony, LG, and TCL. So it was a 100 million US dollar fund. So I served as a partner based in Silicon Valley and helped them make deals in US, Israel, and Asia. The investment there is all kind of like technology companies, from semiconductor, computing, cloud computing, to autonomous driving, etc. So Goodyear Ventures, Goodyear, as you might know, is it's a legacy company. The company founded more than 100 years ago. So Goodyear Ventures, as the investment arm of Goodyear, Goodyear Ventures itself is kind of new. It was launched the beginning of 2020. The fund size is 100 million. That is some high level stuff about myself and about Goodyear.
Okay, so how many deals does Goodyear do a year? What's the general size of the deals? Do you lead?
Sure. All good questions. Probably actually I can see a couple of words about our investment strategy, right? Or investment thesis first. So our investment is kind of around mobility, but when we say mobility, to me, it's kind of broad. Think about from autonomous driving to electrification, from connectivity to other emerging technologies, right? So even we think about autonomous driving itself is pretty broad too. For example, the startups can do something like computing, right? A GPU, CPU, FPGA, that is kind of the brain of the vehicle. How the vehicle process all kind of information, or some other startups, they can do like sensing technology. By sensing, it can be, for example, the camera, the radar, or the lidar, even solid state lidar. It also can be some software, algorithm, right, to process computer vision and so on. So we consider those sensing technology kind of like the ears or the eyes of the vehicle, to help the vehicle really to see the surroundings in a high definition way. And of course, there are some other companies, I call them like a vertical integrator, right? Like Waymo or Waymo Cruise and Too Simple are doing. They integrate the different technology together to provide a level 4 autonomous driving solution. So with that being said, back to your question, Gary. The stage, we're kind of a stage agnostic. By that, what I mean, for example, we can invest in very early stage company, the pre-A stage. One of our portfolio company called Ampop, you probably can find that name here. So what they do is like electric vehicle charging software company, very early stage, graduated from Y Combinator. So we think the electrification obviously is a huge opportunity, right? And the market is highly fragmented. There are a lot of players, but no dominant players so far. And we consider hardware probably is kind of like a commodity. The margin might be not very high. Software gonna be a lot of opportunities. So we made a bet on that company. We're a small company, small check size for that company. We also can do investment on the other side of the spectrum. For example, Too Simple is one of our portfolio companies. So what they do is the long haul self-driving truck, right? They went to public, the earlier for 2021. So that is a kind of late stage investment, Series C stage. So long story short is we are kind of investment from both the early to late stage, as long as we think there is a good strategic and financial return from the investment.
Okay, so you're also investing in terms of technology, hardware and software. It's not one or the other. You look at like sensors as hardware, and then there's a whole software piece of it.
Yes, we do both. I can give you a specific example to answer your question.
Yeah, please.
a company, which I invested a couple of years ago, is called Innovis. What they do is a solid state LiDAR, right? As I mentioned, LiDAR nowadays kind of a very key component for autonomous driving vehicle. So they are kind of a supplier to BMW, right? So that is kind of an example of a hardware side. We do, the short answer is we do both hardware software.
Okay, great. So how do you evaluate startups when they come? First of all, how do they get to your attention? And how do you evaluate them once they get to your attention?
Right. So the source can be different, right? For example, from the introduction from the peer VC, CVC, that is always considered is one of the very important channel for us to get the good startups. For example, I co-invested a company with Andrew, right, with TDK Ventures called Starship Technology. So that kind of a lot of my portfolio companies are kind of referred to me by our by our peer VC and CVCs. So in terms of evaluation of startups, I think if you ask that question to 100 VCs, you might get 100 different answers, right? But for me personally, I think the framework which I use is very simple. I try to ask myself and ask the entrepreneur kind of a very high level 3 questions. Number one is kind of like about timing. Why now, right? So why you think this is a good time to do this? Why not 5 years ago? Why not 5 years later? That question is all about timing, and I think timing is kind of an important thing. The opportunity window is not always open, right? Give you a specific example. If you want to do autonomous driving 20 years ago, that might not be a good time simply because the enabler technology is not mature, it's not there yet, right? So as to achieve autonomous driving, I mean, I'm talking about level 4 autonomous driving. So you really need to have a very powerful computation power, and the semiconductor chip, the computation, technology is not there yet 20 years ago. So I don't think they really can deliver it, right? And so to the sensing technologies. And if you do it kind of very late, when there are kind of a lot of leading players and dominant players in that kind of space, it might be challenging for you to catch up, right? So that is what I mean by timing. So the second thing is probably is about I characterize like why this, right? So why you want to do this, why you want to do this, no matter is a kind of a product or service, no matter is a hardware or software, right? You need to think very deep. What is your value proposition, right? What kind of benefits customers and users can get from it? And if the market is big enough, right? So that is kind of the questions you need to think about regarding to why this. Again, given an example of autonomous driving, I think the market obviously is very big. I would say is a trillion, 1 trillion or 10 trillion. That is the question, right? But it's $1 trillion market, and it's gonna be fundamentally change our life, right? Think about that. And that is a question. Second question, I think, is very important about why this. The third one, I think, is kind of obvious is a why you, right? So even we agree this is the perfect time to do this kind of a product, but why? Think about why you think your team are the right one to handle that kind of challenge, right? So basically, we try to looking for the match between your expertise, your experience, to the kind of stuff you are working on, right? So if there is good match, good fit, then we consider that is good. Yeah, summarize it a little bit at a high level. That is, basically the framework which I use, very simple, right? Why now? Why kind of this, and why you, for us to evaluate the startups.
So that's interesting, because I think a lot of startup pitches, and please comment on this, don't include the why now, the timing issue. They do include the team, because everybody knows you need to include that, and they do include sort of the market size and the growth of that market. Why this, and perhaps how it might affect society long term. I agree with you. I mean, if we get autonomous vehicles, I think it changes the world in a lot of ways, because it's amazing what can happen with an autonomous driving vehicle, including picking you up, dropping you off. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen. But the why now, the timing issue is not typically addressed in most pitches that I've seen. Is that something you'd like to see added?
Actually, that is a very good point. Me neither, right? Of course, every business plan, every deck, they're gonna, I believe the startups, the entrepreneurs gonna explain, or what kind of product they want to build on, right? And what kind of, their team, but not quite often they show, why they believe this is a good time. To echo your point, Gary, a little bit. If we stay with stick to autonomous driving for a little bit longer, if we can consider that sector as two categories, one is goods moving, the other is people moving, right? So by that, what I mean is Waymo, Cruise, obviously they are kind of focused on people moving, and there are some other companies like Too Simple, which what they are doing is like goods moving, right? So here's a question. Think about that from the commercialization point of view. Which type of company gonna be commercialize their technology first? People moving or goods moving? I think 5 years ago, or even a long time ago, folks in this area didn't really think about this question a lot, right? They know they have good technology, but they didn't think about at deep level which kind of sectors they want to play in, like a truck or robot taxi, right? So it turned out it's much easier, or not much easier, but it's, I think, relatively easier to commercialize truck compared to people, because, well, for example, if you want to deliver some goods, right, from logistics center to a store, it's gonna be relatively easier. Because most of the paths can be on highway, right? Think about this. If you want to deliver a people from point A to point B, there might be 100 variables, right? But if you would like to deliver some goods from logistics center to a store, there might be 10 variables, right? So it's much easier to solve the problem, meaning it can be earlier to deliver to the market. So that is what I mean by timing.
Okay, great. Let me just circle back a little bit. You had mentioned in terms of the persona and how you find the deals, how you find the companies, that you have relationships with other CVCs. For example, you did an investment with Andrew Mawe, and you mentioned other VCs. But what I didn't hear you say, maybe I missed it, was you also get deal flow from within your organization. The operating groups that may have come across an interesting technology or an interesting startup. Is that not as big a factor for you?
No, that is definitely a very good question. The deal flow, as I mentioned earlier, one is kind of a referral, right, from our peers. The second, I would like to say, is kind of from incubator or accelerator, right, like Y Combinator and so on. And the third thing, as you mentioned, Gary, is sometimes our business unit already has some partnership with the startup companies, right? Too Simple is exactly like that. So our business unit already partner with them, and then they bring the company to our attention and say, we believe they are good. They know what they're doing, right? They're good at what they are doing. So, and then we evaluate that, and we believe that is a great company. And that is the example, kind of like the business unit, the partnership drive or investment.
Okay. Let's go to the partnership part of it. Andrew had some really great slides, I think, in terms of building a tech partnership. He talked about different kind of values that both bring. So, the corporation brings some vendor channels, sales distribution channels, information, probably deep knowledge of some aspects that might be important for the startup. If it's a piece of hardware, it might be manufacturing, brand perception. Often they bring customers. other customers, not only themselves, but other customers. Do you want to just add anything to that? I just want to give you an opportunity to respond or enhance
Sure.
that. And then we'll talk about what the startups bring to the corporation.
Yeah, I think it's both way, right? So I think the strategic investor, or I would like to say the CVC, the difference between the CVC to the financial investor is we think we can bring more than the capital itself, right? So we always try to add the strategic value to all portfolio companies. Also, one of the motivation why we want to make investment is we always looking forward to learning, to gather learning and knowledge from our portfolio companies too. I probably can give some examples to make it a little bit more clear.
I love your example. So yeah, please tell us examples.
Right. I can use the one which I mentioned earlier, the super early seed company graduated from Y Combinator called Unpop. So the electric vehicle charging software company. So the angle why we consider that company is very interesting is, so Goodyear, as you might know, has thousands of retail stores across the US. So what they do now is, kind of like if you want to change a tire, right? They help you change your tire, and they help you to replace your engine oil, the engine filter, and so on. So I warn those guys. Think about that. You guys might lose your job after 5 years, right? Why? Because if everyone gonna drive Tesla or other electric vehicle, right? There's no engine oil and there's no filter for you to exchange. So think about what is your future. So the way sometimes they look at me, they kind of have no idea, right? So the way we kind of lay out for them and the future is get ready to be as service provider to electric vehicle. For example, nowadays there are probably 1 million plus gas stations across US, right? But how many chargers, how many electric vehicle chargers plugs are available? I think it's like 100K plus, right? So there's a lot of space, growing space in that kind of sector. So why can Goodyear play some role in that kind of space, right? So we can build charge station at our store, right? And to provide a service to the electric vehicle. Also, I'm not talking about tomorrow or next month, but let's say imagine 3 years later or 5 years later, there are going to be more and more autonomous driving vehicle driving in the street. And then there are a lot of sensors, right? Like LiDAR or other sensors need to do calibration. So we also can be a service provider as that. So that is basically the angle, the perspective why we would like to invest in EV charging software company. Because we can be their customer, right? We can use their software and or charging stations to provide service to EVs. So another direction is, we can, the value which we can add to startups is like, one of our portfolio company called Gatik, G-A-T-I-K. So what they do is they partner with Walmart, and they basically, they develop those middle mile delivery self-driving truck, and they take the goods from Walmart logistics center and then they deliver it to Walmart store. And this is not like a demo, right? So what they are doing now is really commercialized operation on daily basis and totally autonomous. They totally get rid of the safety driver. So that is pretty amazing to me. And so what kind of value we can provide for them is, they bring up a question for us is, imagine, they need to drive through some community, right? Some kids might play, on the street. What happened, what they can do if any kid, runs through the road, right? So they want to make their truck stop as fast as possible when that happens. So that is where Goodyear can contribute to. We have our kind of solution to get the real-time road condition, like let's say the real-time road friction, the traction, the tire pressure, and so on, and to bring that to improve the safety, the efficiency of the vehicle. So yeah, we always try to add value to our startups, but we also very open-minded, trying to learning from them.
Okay, so in the first example, the EV charging station example, the software, you were sort of a user. You would be a customer for them. You would be a channel as well for them to expand throughout the US.
Yes.
Because once they start capturing the Goodyear stores or the Goodyear retail places, then it's much easier for them to say, look, we're here, why don't we go with other companies as well? So you could, you could be there, as well as you're adding information and data. So I mean, it's a good example because it has a lot of benefits to the startup. I see that my good friend Casey is on. Are we running out of time?
No, we have some time. Ben, you have some time, right?
I don't know how much time I have left.
Okay, we'll wrap this in 10 minutes. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, let me just mention here that please, if you have questions, put them in the chat. I'm trying to keep an eye on it. I know that Casey is doing the same thing. So if you have any good questions, just please feel free to do that as well. Okay, let's flip it. That's from the corporate side, from what the corporation can give to the startup. Let's look at what the startup can give to this corporation. Again, Andrew's slide mentioned, and I think it was good, was innovative IP, unique product vision, ability to quickly iterate, compelling story, growth potential, and unique talent. So shout out to Andrew for that. Thank you. Do you want to expand on those? Do you want to talk about any specifics? Do you have any good stories or examples?
Yes, sure, totally. Probably I can share another example is there's a New York City based company called Revival, REVL. So what they do is very interesting. Is we also one of their investors. So what they do is they have electric moped, right? But more than that, they also launched a ride sharing service. It's similar to Uber and Lyft. The difference here is all of their fleet are kind of like Tesla Model Y. So imagine that, right? All fleet of Model Y, and so basically their thesis is the user experience is supposed to be better than Uber and Lyft, right? So you can now control what kind of vehicle you're gonna get if you take an Uber. But more than that is that they treat their employees better. For Uber, for example, I'm a driver, right? Then I'm kind of a gig workers. Uber pay me salary, but there's no kind of a benefits, no insurance, right? But for Rival, their drivers are kind of their insurance. They pay them base salary, but more than that, they also pay their benefits. So that is one company I think is very interesting. And then when they running their ride sharing service, they realize Manhattan, for example, there are not enough amount of faster charger, right? So they have a fleet they need to manage, but they kind of struggling to find a charger to pump up their fleet. And then they start to build that by themselves. Now there is a kind of like a flywheel effect. They accumulate customers by their e-moped business, and then they have the ride sharing business. They also build up their EV charging infrastructure by themselves. The motivation for us to invest in that kind of a company is we would like to learn what is the future of mobility, what is the future of ride sharing business, right? So nowadays, everyone wants to move forward to electrification. So the goal, the mission of Arrival is try to electrify everything, from micro mobility to vehicle to charging space. That is one example. I think we learn a lot from them.
Okay, so in that example, one of the benefits you saw from investing them and partnering with them was to understand the unique product vision that they have, and to understand how that unique product vision might play out in the marketplace. I mean, there's a huge risk there, because if the product vision doesn't work out, if they run into problems with providing all these benefits and providing everything else, and they can't make the ends meet, or their price is too high for the end customer, then you're going to lose your investment. But in the meantime, you've learned a ton, which I think is something that I think people forget, is that the startup, it's a two-way street. The startup teaches you as you teach the startup.
Totally.
Okay. There's a question, I think, do you want to do it, Casey?
Yes.
You want me to do it?
I'll do that, Jerry, because I have a question too.
Okay.
And a comment. Bin, your comment on timing is so appropriate, right on. It's straight from Sun Tzu, and in the startup war with such a perspective, the art of war can be won. So I loved it. I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple of our startups because they are in logistics trucking space. By the way, we are the mentoring we do for US government in Northern California. If you have a portfolio company in Northern California, we can get them mentoring for free because government is paying access to top grant writers, everything. Now I just want to briefly mention two companies. One is Cargo Chief. They just finished Series A. They provide logistic data. Very smart company. Founder went to Harvard Business School, serial entrepreneur, very, very solid. I can send your stuff to you, even though they are not fundraising, but it may be a fit, some kind of thing. The other is Telemetrac. They just finished raising pre-series A. And actually, Cargo Chief and Telemetrac founders went to Harvard, but they met at Pitch Global, and Cargo Chief invested in Telemetrac. Now, Telemetrac is disrupting cargo theft business using kinetic energy, and they have got a grant from US government agency through our network. So I'll send you their stuff too.
Yeah, they have a quick update on that. They have a sensor using kinetic energy that can keep track of every container, both in the ocean and on the land.
Yeah.
Great.
And then last, we just had one company sign up as a sponsor for our CES event on 5th January. They are called Autosys, and they have had investment from Volvo Capital Partners, Volvo Investment. They look good to me too. Either Jerry or I will just send them to you for your, I mean, we don't make intros because I know investors typically don't like that. They like to just, see the thing first on their own. So we'll just forward whoever these three companies to you. So thank you, because we want investors to come back again and again, not lose them. So that's, I just wanted to give you some heads up of companies we are mentoring on behalf of US government. So Jerry, is there any final question here?
Well, there was one in the chat that I thought we might ask. I want to be respectful of Ben's time, and also I think we're running a little behind. So
all right, okay, let's ask that question. Is it a good idea for a startup to target CVCs that are investing in that specific industry for collaboration?
I think the answer should be technically, my experience is that maybe it's the best strategy to get both, right? I mean, the investor from the financial side and from the strategic side. The financial investor, is very helpful too, right? So the strategic investor is, it can provide value, and it probably can be the customer of the startup company, but you want your so the financial investor here is they can help you really, quite a lot. So I like to say the best combination probably gonna be you get a lead investor likely from the financial, and probably in the follow investor from the strategic side. That might be the kind of one of the best combo in my view.
That's great. So once again, Dr. Zhao, thank you so much. Loved your perspective, especially your top 3 reasons. It's so right on. And it's a pleasure to meet you and Andrew for making the introduction. Today, I'm gonna hand over the floor to Megan Rice from Trinet because she texted me saying she just joined. So if she has any final word to say, and she will close this event. So thank you, everybody. And Megan, if you're there, floor is yours.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. So, all right, Megan is not there.
Yeah,
So
no,
Megan is
I'm here. Can you hear
all
me?
right. Yeah. So please
Okay.
give your parting message.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Glad you all could attend today. My apologies, I was late. I was in a meeting. But I just wanted to quickly say, if you're not very familiar with TriNet, I kind of like to talk about, as the world is seeing significant changes left and right, and kind of the way that we do business is changing along with it, and really being able to adapt to those changes, however, can be obviously, I think we all can understand unfamiliar or daunting. And so it's really critical for sustainable business success. And in my opinion, I think really the biggest challenges I see startups face is really identifying and understanding the corporate landscape for the future. And as industries and technologies really continue to evolve, and as these new generations enter to the workforce, there's and globalization increases, the competition, and really the nature of work responds and adapts to these environmental influences. It's really going to be the human resources that's going to strengthen any organization's key requirement, and that's us, the people. And so, I would love the opportunity, if anyone is open to an exploratory conversation of how we've been able to help other startups like yourself, control costs, lower the burn, and really extend the runway. We're able to tap into large benefit resources that typically startups and small businesses really don't have access to. So that's kind of what I wanted to say this morning or afternoon for those of you that are on the East Coast. But thank you, Casey, for allowing me to have the floor for a couple of minutes.
All right. Thank you, Megan. And thank you, everybody, for being part of this shared experience. Hope these insights are proven helpful, and we want to encourage everybody to accelerate their entrepreneurial journey, because we are there as a resource and there are lots out there we'll help you discover, like TriNet, like SKPR. So thank you. I declare this event closed.